Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call. All directors are present. Moving on to agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
We're going to be adding a closed session item. It's regarding a claim that was presented to the district after the agenda was posted. And when Mr. Kennedy gets on the line, he will give you the language.
Okay. All right. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda with changes?
I'll move the agenda with the changes.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The agenda is approved. Moving on to public comment. We don't have any members of the public in person, and is that Mr.
That's Mr. Lawrence, our
Okay.
parks.
Great. So we don't have no members of the public online. So we will move on to community reports. Dr. Holman.
Thank you very much. Good evening, I guess it is, to everyone. Thank you for, as always, partnering with us and allowing me, being a representative of Sonoma Joint Unified School District, give these reports real quickly. And since it's been a little bit of time since I've been here, my apologies with various meetings and so forth. I felt like what I would do today is twofold. One is just highlight a couple of the successes happening. There's so many of them. Also the partnerships. When I talk about partnerships, right over here, Don Fish, we partner with him to do some of the marketing efforts out our way. Really appreciate that great work. Appreciate your partnership, because back in October, right here, Kim Sevi had given me a copy of the calendar. Then even think about that calendar. That's our artwork coming from our wonderful kids here. And I shared that with the board, and just thanked all of you for allowing us to do that with I think really what's to the forefront of that is allowing kids to express their passions. And so thanks for doing that. Greatly appreciate those partnerships. In October, too, we have a superintendent's honor roll. That's all kids who get all A's up through their junior year. And there were 10 of the kids up at Serrano High School accomplished that. It's a great accomplishment, very rare for students to do that. And so we awarded that at one of our board meetings. Also, PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Supports. That's the pro-social goal that we have within our school district, to have consistent, predictable, positive, safe, and nurturing environments at all schools. That's a very common program implemented up and throughout the state. We had all of our schools receive those awards. You know, there's a bronze, silver, gold, but platinum's the highest level. Piñon Mesa Middle School and Phelan Elementary School received that, so really proud of them. Also, Seal of Biliteracy. We talk about a world-class education. We had dozens and dozens, up to 4 dozen kids who achieved at this point, or they're on track to achieve the Seal of Biliteracy. And that's a capacity for them to speak another language, right, fluently. And so really proud of them in that regard. We're finishing our mission, vision, and graduate profile, most recently working with a collaborative group here. And also the Veterans Dinner. Thanks, as always, to all of you who support that effort. Really grateful for our veterans in our community here who really, in many cases, have just sacrificed so very much. We had our 29th annual, getting ready for our 30th next year. I hope you would attend that one as well. Most recently, I talk all the time about our career pathways and the successes that we have in that regard. Just this week, we had a Sweet Genius, if you will, a baking competition competing against all the high schools up here. And our culinary arts program up at Serrano High School won. Their cupcake, Disney-themed, Winnie the Pooh was the winner, so very proud of them for their great work in that regard. And in this holiday season, we've got the dinner show that's happening on Friday night, Saturday night. If you want to take part in that, that's at 7 o'clock. It's a wonderful dinner, plus our choral presentations. And then tomorrow, I qualify, most of you probably don't. It's our annual senior citizen holiday dinner. I'm old enough to be there. I'll be there supporting all of our senior citizens. Thanks for always, as always, supporting getting the word out and supporting the fact that kids are going to be serving our senior citizens, performing for them. And again, that's our 28th annual. So I just want to go back to where I started there with the partnerships. Thanks for being a great partner with us here in this community. We appreciate you greatly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, I don't have any other community members. Mr. Barnes, did you have a, sorry. Mr. Barnes, did you have a public comment before we started? Okay, just wanted to make sure I caught you. All right, so we will move on to agenda item number 3, consent items. Does anyone have anything they would like to pull? No? All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the item.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Consent items are approved, so we have nothing removed, no presentation. So then we move on to agenda item 6A, discussion and possible action regarding election of officers.
Madam President, may I make a nomination?
Please.
I would like to nominate Director Hayes for the 2024 president and Director Snyder to be vice president.
All right,
I'll second that.
all right. Is that okay with both of you?
Assuming that
Correct, that they
they're
are
willing to
accept.
serve.
I will accept.
I'll accept.
All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent, thank you very much.
And that will take place in January, the switch, so you can
Correct.
finish the meeting out.
All right, perfect, thank you. All right, excellent. So then we will move on to agenda item 6B, discussion and possible action regarding committee assignments. At this time, I would just like to leave the committees the same, and if the president so chooses when he takes office in January, then we can adjust those accordingly. All right. Do I need a motion on that one? Okay, perfect. All right, so then we will move on to 6C, discussion, I am not reading all this. Discussion and possible adoption of Resolution 2023-28. Mr. Barnes.
Thank you. Just for the background, when the district took out the loan or the lease for the new building, we encumbered the property, the Meadowbrook property, which was intended to be the solar site. With the sale of the property, we've had some lot line adjustments to the property, and the bank has accepted the section of land that the solar will be on. And with that, there's some paperwork that has to be done to transfer the lease. I guess the amendment to the lease is what it is. So the staff's recommendation is the board adopt resolution number 23-28, approving the form and authorizing execution and delivery of a First Amendment and lease agreement and memorandum of lease agreement, and a First Amendment to site lease, approving and authorizing execution and delivery of all necessary documents and other related actions in connection with the release of certain real property currently leased in connection with the lease agreement with the district.
Nice.
So that is all the formal paperwork for the bank to transfer the lease.
Okay, any questions? No, over here?
Just that I assume Mr. Kennedy
Yes.
has either reviewed or written it and approved
Yes,
of
that
everything.
he did approve this.
And apparently the bank
Yes,
is... Oh, go ahead, Steve.
yes, I have approved that. Yeah, I'm sorry, Director Roberts. Yes, I have reviewed it. Special counsel has prepared those documents, and they are acceptable for my purposes as well.
And that the bank is happy to remove some of the properties from...
Yes, as a matter of fact, this was a very simple process, easier than we had anticipated. And they took a look at what we were proposing and had agreed to it. So
It removes a lot of liabilities that
yes,
go along
absolutely.
with that, the other parts of the property. So,
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Deborah, any questions?
No, the answer that anyone's at.
All right, well, with no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2023-29 authorizing staff. Oh, that's the wrong one, I'm sorry. It's 2023-28.
28.
Correct.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 6D, discussion and possible adoption of Resolution 2023-29, authorizing staff to execute and take actions necessary for the purpose of obtaining federal financial assistance provided by the Federal Department of Homeland Security and subgranted through the state of California for the fiscal year of 2022 Nonprofit Security Grant Program. Boom.
Thank you. I don't think I could have said that any better.
You're welcome.
So I can read through this if you like, but this basically authorizes the district to, and the manager and George Cardenas to sign the documents. This is for the $2 million appropriation. I guess it's called an appropriation for the Emergency Operations Center for the new administrative complex. And so the staff's recommendation is for the board to adopt resolution number 2023-29, authorizing staff to execute and take actions necessary for the purpose of obtaining federal financial assistance provided by the Federal Department of Homeland Security and subgranted through the state of California for the fiscal year 2022 Nonprofit Security Grant Program.
Perfect. All right, any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Any actions? Sorry, any actions? I don't quite understand that.
So that mainly has to do with, we can submit reports and any documents that we need to secure the grant. Of course, anything related to expenditures that are outside of our purchasing authority, such as the construction contract, those are going to go through our whole bidding process that includes the board. So, and of
But
course,
that's not identified in here. Nothing is identified in here.
yeah.
I mean, you're willing to sign a document that says you can take, you are liable to take any actions necessary?
Well, any actions necessary would obviously be reviewed before I would sign any documents. And so any actions that I would sign off on would be something where I have authority. If not, it would need to come back to the board. It wouldn't be anything beyond that.
And it's for the purposes of obtaining the grant, not expending it.
I understand that, but by signing this, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't sign it, so. Not without some type of framework. This is the document here, right? And it says simply, any action necessary for the purposes of obtaining federal assistance provided by, it doesn't specify anything.
Yeah, this is not signing an authorization by doing this. This is authorizing me to sign on behalf of the district. So this is not just a blanket, we approve this and they can do whatever they want. This authorizes me or George to sign off on any documentation that we would have in the process. The part of the problem that we're having and the delay in the bidding of the project is this $2 million grant that we're receiving, which now we have to go through a NEPA process. So there's going to be some sign-offs with that. That will be coming to the board. I would assume the board has to approve the NEPA. Steve, is that correct? Just like they would the CEQA?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, Don, and I would essentially concur with Director Roberts. I think that the execution of any document necessary would be confined to any document within the scope of the authority granted by the board or within the statutory authority of the general manager under the Community Services District Act, and would not necessarily be anything that it wouldn't be a blank check. So I mean, I agree with that. That language, though, is something that it has been a thorn in my side on a lot of these grant applications, is that it suggests that the general manager has authority beyond what the board has granted, or that may be beyond the law. And so kind of having a tighter rein on that is something that I completely agree with. And it should not be a blank check. for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just.
It should not be any document necessary.
It's not
I agree with that. It
documents,
should be
it's
any
any
document
actions.
that's consistent with the direction of the board. And that is how I've written those resolutions, but a lot of times that isn't what they want.
Yeah, from what I understand, we cannot change this document. We can either approve this and give me the authority to sign it, or not. Yeah, but we don't have the option to modify this. This is a official document from Cal OES.
Well, what if Homeland Security asks you to furnish them every bit of information on anybody that's associated with the district or all the employees or anything? And it says here that you are liable for any actions necessary. Now, it doesn't say for the purpose of obtaining federal assistance, a specific grant. It just says any financial assistance. I mean, what are you going to do then?
That's a really,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Director Roberts, you're exactly right. A lot of times, we saw that during the COVID period, where there was, as part of getting state or federal monies, there was an agreement that you would comply with all of the regulations of the state or federal government regarding anything. That was part of the conditions that agencies were signing in order to get funding agreement. And then there was a realization, wait a minute, so we have to agree to all these COVID conditions unless, or else we don't get the grant funding. And that was, I agree with you. I completely agree that a lot of these times with the grant funding, that there is an extraordinary amount of overreaching that the state and federal government does to try and bind local government to conditions that maybe something that the local government doesn't want to do. I'm not suggesting that the board not adopt this resolution, but I am in agreement with the careful reading of the resolution, and that we just don't agree to these kind of things blindly without having seen what the district is binding itself into. And General Manager Bartz is correct. We don't have the ability to modify these, but the board does have the ability to say, is it worth agreeing to these conditions and getting the money, or not agreeing to these conditions and not getting the money? And it is not an easy call. And so I agree with the approach that you're taking with this, because more often than not, it's just, we're getting the money and there isn't any understanding of what that means, any understanding of the strings that are attached to all of that. So I think this analysis is very much appropriate.
Thank goodness it's the government. Oh no, it's the governor.
Well, so the way I look at this, if we have something that comes across the desk for my signature, I'm going to look at it. If it's anything that I would consider even remotely controversial, that we would be binding ourselves to some government regulation or something, I'd bring it right back to the board for approval, because I would want the board involved in any decision to do anything. It could be something as simple as signing off on a document saying, we're accepting the money, or anything else.
You are, by signing this, you are accepting any stipulation or any request that Homeland Security requests of you. There is no limit. There is no binding. There is no description of anything. And it doesn't say documents, Don. It says any actions necessary. They can make you do anything, and you're bound, or go to jail if the money's been received.
Yeah, I could be reading this wrong, but what I'm seeing is I'm authorized to execute that. It doesn't say that I'm required to, but it's authorizing me to sign on behalf of the district. Because I'm right there with you. I wouldn't, somebody could say, sign this, and I'm not going to do it if there's anything controversial at all. It authorizes me to do it But it doesn't look like, to me, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a demand that I'm just signing off on anything they throw in front of me.
What are the implications to the project if we don't accept the $2 million?
Then we have $2 million that we would need to find another source to fund.
That's what the OAS portion is going to be, the emergency operations?
Yes.
If we don't build that piece? What would that be?
The emergency operations center portion of that is the boardroom. The boardroom and the meeting rooms on that end of the building.
It's the boardroom / EOC and all the equipment in there. The EOC gets to share a proportional share of the infrastructure costs with the rest of the building based off square footage. So it's not necessarily that the EOC costs that, but the building that will house the EOC is going to, pay for its share of the total construction costs.
So we're almost in a position to where we have to accept the $2 million to get the project completed.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The project could be completed, but you would have to dig deep in order to, at $2 million deeper.
Well, the scope of the grant funding, it's all spelled out clearly what they'll provide and what's expected from us, right?
That's correct.
And so basically, in contracts like that, because I've done grant funding for water projects, for wastewater projects, for parks and stuff, they're looking for a key point person that has the authority because they don't want to slow down the project or the funding. So they want a sole person to go to that has the authority to do that. I didn't look at it as you're binding, you're bound to sign that contract. You're the person that can sign it after review and consideration. Steve, this might be a question for you. Is there anything that the board can do that on our end that gives the general manager the authority to have the signature, but yet on our end we say it's got to come back to the board before he makes any decisions based on funding, the amount of money, provisions to the agreement, that kind of thing?
Great question, Director Snyder, and I completely agree with that. I have rewritten those resolutions many times so that there isn't, that ultimately has to come back to the board, that the general manager isn't authorized to sign anything and everything that comes across his desk, but rather that it has to be within the scope of the authorization granted by the board. Sometimes that's a problem, sometimes it's not. And but I mean, my feeling when it comes to these grant documents, a lot of times what the focus is on is how much money you're getting and not on all of the strings that are attached. And believe me, there are strings that are attached. And so, and understanding what those are is an important part of what a board is supposed to do, rather than just blindly taking the money, accepting the money, telling the general manager, sign whatever comes across your desk to accept the money, and not understanding about the strings. And so I mean, my personal feeling is that when it comes to these resolutions, we should have some say in them. And that the board should have some ability to say, no, I can't give a blank check to the general manager or here or there to execute any document that comes across my desk. There should be some limit on that. There should be some guardrails on all of that. And it should be within the scope of what the board is authorizing. And the board should be able to see those documents. That's the part that drives me crazy on this stuff, is why is the board not able to see any of these documents before getting the money? And the board not know what it's binding itself into as a condition of this money that's coming in. But I mean, that's a frustration that I've had on grant agreements that, that are from, whether it's from the state, from the federal government, or otherwise. And the general manager is correct. There's not a lot of latitude in how these resolutions are drafted, but I concur with the idea of why not try and push back on some of it, because the board should feel a little bit concerned about signing and approving a resolution with that sort of blank check attached to it.
Thank you.
What is the timeline and having to have the resolution complete?
So, FEMA is happy to delay, however long we need. It's the feds, so anytime you want to make a change to something, you're adding several months to a project. I'm not sure that this is going to have much of an impact if we wait until January. Perhaps we can talk with them and get additional information, because we are still working with FEMA and Cal OES on the NEPA. And so we know that's going to delay us until fall of next year, no matter what. We're still working on the bid documents, so I don't see the harm in just maybe bringing this back in January with additional information and reaching out to them to see if we can modify this and what that looks like. We have obtained a federal grant before, and I believe it was pretty much the same type of resolution, and they never asked us for anything wonky. If there's anything there
Yeah.
to help you.
When was this?
That was the meter grant, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago?
Yeah, so, and like Steve was talking
Well-
about, it had all the COVID stuff, everything in there, but nothing came about from that one. That was a much smaller grant.
I'm also okay if any document that comes across my desk that needs to be signed, we bring it back to the board and sign it then. The board would have an opportunity to review anything that's signed. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't even know what exactly
And
the
I think-
documents will be.
I agree with that. If that's the authority that's given by the board, perhaps the board can adopt a resolution, but make that a condition, that any document that comes back has to come back to the board. And as long as the board is involved in the discretionary process, then that makes sense to me. I concur with the comments about, this shouldn't, just a blank authorization of this nature is problematic and should be problematic.
Ridiculous.
I think the board's right on this.
Yeah, with any of the grant applications, the provisions that's required to accept that funding is spelled out clear. You know what you're getting into before you even apply for the grant. There's been several
Right.
opportunities I've said, yeah, but no thank you, because of the strings that were attached. I think I'll speak for myself, and the other board members might want to say, we maybe want to see those documents for those grant applications, just so we know, or have a presentation done by the staff that highlights the key things of that contract, and of course also with Steve's review.
So, yeah, even though we've been working on this a very long time, we're just now getting into the contract phase with FEMA, which is why this resolution came up. And so, at the same time they gave us this, we did get the notice of funding opportunity. So that's like the really big packet of information that has all of those guidelines. And I can email that to the directors. And it's something we can, as we receive these documents, can include in the board packet if you would like.
I'd be comfortable bringing it back in January with other information.
Yeah, why don't I put the notice of funding opportunity, which does go through in detail all of the provisions of this funding requirement, along with the resolution. We can make a phone call to our representatives at FEMA to see if there is any flexibility in the language of this resolution. Typically, there isn't. Or it takes an act of Congress to change some of these things. But I don't see the harm in waiting until January, so you're comfortable.
Good with that?
Well, I'm wondering if nothing is bound until the money's accepted. And that would be my question that the staff needs to find out. We agree to this resolution, but if the money is not accepted, does that cancel everything out?
Yeah, there's still
And we
a
need
lot
to
of
see it,
hoops.
as
Yeah,
Director Schneider
this
said, we
resolution
can
is
see
like-
the documents to see what we're bound
Correct.
to. So that's the big question. I mean, there's no bounds here. There's nothing.
Yeah, there's still so many more hoops and hurdles to get through before we even get to that contractual phase. Again, we have a NEPA that's not going to be completed until, because of FEMA, not because of anything we're doing, until, third quarter of 2024. And during that time, we're going to be processing all of these other requirements. So it's a lot. It's a lot to obtain these funds that our congressman gave us.
Yes. Okay.
I guess if staff can find some of those salient points out, then we can.
Yeah, as of right now, I'm okay with waiting till January to approve this. We'll find out more information and have a robust discussion on this, because I agree. We shouldn't just be signing anything, and that would not happen. It's got to be within my authority, and I'm not going to bind the district to anything. My job's more important than that.
And I didn't consider my comments anything direct. I think you're fully capable of doing that.
No, I didn't
It's
take
just
it that way.
Check mark the box, Thank you.
Okay, so we will bring that back in January. All right, so we will move on to agenda item 6E, discussion and possible adoption of resolution 2023-30, authorizing the adoption and implementation of an early retirement incentive program.
Thank you. I'm going to handle part of this. Ms. Sevi is going to answer a lot of the questions. She did put this together. Staff did a wonderful job. And this goes back to our succession planning, which is part of our strategic plan. And the board has asked, what are our plans and how do we, what can we do for the future? What does it look like? And how can we save money? And so staff was tasked with doing that. And what we're doing is looking at a way to reduce the district's operating cost in consideration of succession planning, which would develop into reorganization of certain positions. When the district started, we needed certain positions because we just didn't have anything in place going back 15 years ago. It's changed quite a bit now, with not only with the employees and the skill sets that they have, but technology has become a big part of that. So we found ways to kind of divide up the work, and you can see some of that occurring as we're going through. A good example is the budget for the last couple of years. We've had new staff involved with preparing that, and actually I think they did a very good job. Something that had never been contemplated in the past. So the ERIP is the program that we're putting together, and it should, if it's approved by the board, it would be realistic to estimate that the best district could save about $837,000 over the first 5 years. And that takes into account every aspect of that: salary, CalPERS, the workers' comp, insurance, payroll taxes, and in excess of $70,000 per year after that. And that's for CalPERS only, without impacting staff levels or service to district customers. So we put together a kind of a few-page summary of what that looks like, how it would be implemented, what would be, I think, fair to the district and also fair to the employees. There has to be some incentive if you want somebody to retire early. There's going to be a loss of income, so there's got to be some give and take. But the bottom line is over a number of years, we'll save the district a substantial amount of money. Basically, it's mostly our employees that have been here for 15 years or more, which are typically the higher paid employees. I am not included in this program, so this is not something that I'm participating in. But the eligibility requirements are on page 78. So you have retirement age and a CalPERS plan. They would retire no later than May 31st of 2024, so it would go into next year. And they would retire under CalPERS effective no later than June 1st, 2024. And you can see there's a severance package that's offered, 2 weeks of severance pay for each full year of district service. Medical insurance, and staff has done a great job determining the costs for either supplemental with the I'm drawing a blank on the retirement. Kim, I'm going to let you pick up right there.
Yeah. So essentially, the big issue with, of course, retiring early is how do you take care of your medical insurance, since we don't offer any post-retirement benefits, blanketed in our manual or policies or anything to our employees right now. And so This would alleviate that anxiety that they would make it to Medicare age with the safety net of having an insurance plan or an HRA that the district funds. Of course, that would be up to a maximum of 5 years. And of course, this only affects, our classic Tier 1 employees who are all retirement eligible at this point in time, per CalPERS rules. I did want to point out that Mr. Kennedy did review this. We did add in a section that he recommended that we encourage anybody that is looking into this program, maybe taking us up on it, that they're going to get outside counsel on this, that they meet with their CalPERS representative, any other retirement program representatives that they may have, maybe from the county and Social Security, just to make sure that they know what retirement looks like for them. Even their tax person they might want to meet with. And we do have a timeline in order to achieve, these financial savings. And so we are recommending that we meet with them over the course of January. They do all of their homework, and they let us know by January 31st what they'd like to do. We report back to the board, and then we have plenty of time to do our staffing transition before their last day of service, which would be May 31st. I don't know if there's any other questions you have.
Did you say somewhere in here, because I scanned through it really fast, how many employees that were eligible right now?
There's 4.
4, okay.
We don't think we're going to have 4, but there are 4 that are eligible.
Yeah.
This is a one-time shot, right?
One time.
This is a one-time shop. It really narrows it down due to the way that it's written. You look at the number 15 years and the most expensive CalPERS employees and probably the most expensive on the medical too, just due to the being here for 15 years that late in their career.
Yeah.
Is how I would put that. I happen to fall into that category too, so I'm one of the most expensive people in the room.
So it's kind of like the school district's golden handshake program that we kind of throw out there every once in a while.
Yeah, because you end up with some of your most highly compensated employees because they've been
Yeah.
there a long time. And, like Mr. Bartz was saying, when we started the district, it was being started from scratch, and that required a certain type of employee. And now that the district is up and running, and our succession plan, is working, we know that we're going to not be replacing some of these positions outright. We're going to be spreading the workload, hiring some lower level employees, probably entry levels are more than likely going to come in at pension reform, so they pay their own portion of CalPERS. Or if they're Tier 2, they come from another agency. We just passed that resolution with CalPERS that they're going to pay their portion if they join us. So, there are some significant savings to be had to the district with this program.
Yeah, and this is not forcing anybody out the door. This is completely voluntary if they'd like to do that. We did have some discussions with employees who could be considered for this and got input from them. We want it to be, as in everything we do, fair to the district and to the employee, and looking forward to what's best for the district over the years. When we had our strategic plan done and we started the succession planning, we started several years ago, actually probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, training people to step up into some of these positions that'll be modified from what we have right now, but doing the same work, but just kind of delegating the work differently than what we've done in the past. I think it's a good streamlining of the operation, and I would recommend that the board consider this.
I would have liked to have seen all the backup information on how we got to the $837,000 savings. I see the chart you provided, but how about the personnel and who's going to move where, who we're going to move into what position, and how all that worked out?
Yes, and that's a great question. Some of it we can't provide. The board approves the concept. The internal workings of it is the staff's responsibility. I do understand your concern though, and if you'd like to have a discussion about that further, we can certainly do that.
Because it's actually pretty lucrative for the employee that takes it. I mean, you make $100,000 a year and you've been here 15 years, you're going to get a check for $60,000. We pay your medical for 5 years, that's another $100,000. Then we pay 500 a month for the next 3 years for an HRA. That's another 18 grand. Man, they're walking out the door with 172,000 over 8 years. That's a lot of money.
It is. It absolutely is.
Even with all of that taken into account, as it is in the analysis done, the district is still going to save over 800,000 over 5 years.
Yeah, that's the part that I would have liked to have seen to see how that works out. And it's
Only if they were
Only
going to
if the-
stay for 5 years. If they retired a year or two later
Yeah.
without this, then it's actually costing the district.
Yeah. So I can tell you that with the employees that we've talked to, their plan was to stay. It was for a number of, it's not like they were going to be out the door in a year anyhow. They were going to be here for the period of time till they reached the age for their medical and everything.
So there was 4 that are eligible, and of those 4, they all are going to stay?
For the most part, probably yes.
Well, then why are we,
One of our lowest compensated employees would benefit from this program, but she was going to be retiring next year.
Yeah, that would be the only, the other ones were
But it'll
gonna be
be
here for the long
a
haul.
salary for salary replacement for her anyway. And I can tell you, based off of her age, she is not going to benefit from the medical except for a couple months for the HRA. Without naming it.
so at this point, there's no employees that are anxious to see about this at this time, but if it's offered to them, there's a possibility that, so, yeah, I would want to see a little bit better breakdown on what savings if only one employee,
We do have 2 that are anxious.
two that are
Yeah,
anxious.
2 that are anxious.
And these numbers are based on 2 or 4?
These numbers are based on 4, but the analysis for the lowest compensated employee who's likely to retire and won't get much medical benefit out of this, it's so minimal because she's going to be replaced with a very similar employee.
Yeah.
And it's our 2 highest compensated employees that we think might take this, that otherwise would not retire for many more years.
And mostly because of the medical benefits.
That's the big one.
That's
I think if
huge.
we had a post-retirement medical benefit like other agencies, they would be considering retirement because they are CalPERS eligible. But because we don't have a post-retirement medical, offering this one time to our most highly compensated employees that are of retirement age per CalPERS and are classic tier 2, so they're our most expensive pension liability. It benefits everybody by adopting this.
There are very few agencies out there that give lifetime medical, though. I mean, that's a huge benefit.
Well, 65, you have to sign up for
Yeah.
Medicare anyway, so I mean,
So it's lifetime to 65.
yeah.
Post-retirement benefits are huge for a lot of people in their determination whether they want to retire or not. Because you're looking at a couple $1,000s a month until you reach retirement age just for the basic medical insurance now. And it's going to go up every year.
Yeah.
So if you look at page 79 at the top, there's a breakdown. It doesn't break it down person by person, but it does break down the costs. The first year, it's going to cost us about $113,000. By the second year, will be $87,000 to the good. And these are adjusted either up or down depending on how many retire. So if only 2 retired, our costs for the first year are going to be lower than the 113. And then if only 2 retired, it's
And the
probably very
savings would be
similar.
less the
Yeah.
second year,
Yeah.
so it might be a break even after 2 years of 2.
Yes. So by year 3, we're over
It's
$300,000 to the good.
No matter what happens.
And then up by 28, 29, we're over $800,000 to the good.
Yeah, I just go back to a question on the background information. I thought in terms of public employees, all salary and benefits are public knowledge. It's just the personnel files related to evaluations and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, you're exactly right.
yeah, and so, you know, I'm sure staff did their due diligence and Steve had an opportunity to review this document, but it would be nice, as the other director indicated, to take a look at the background work behind it, just so when we take a look at it, we know what we're actually approving. And not that I don't trust staff, it's just, it's good to look at numbers and see what it is, so it can be out in the open. Because you know, you can even look me up, I'm a retired public employee, classic member. And
Yeah,
my
everybody's salary's
posted
public,
everywhere
yeah.
all over the internet, so
Mhm.
it shouldn't be any different for us.
Yeah, it wasn't to hide salaries, but you did mention wanting to see kind of our detailed succession plan, and that's still kind of being meddled out. So, but I guess we could do it, you know,
And
anonymously.
the other
Well,
thing
we
that
had, we had to
comes-
use something to get to the 832, so if
We
we could
did,
just see
yeah,
that.
we did some salary, you know, a salary survey analysis of kind of like,
Replacement cost?
yeah, like for example, if we replace one of these positions, you know, because some of the work's being spread over here and over here, we just might need to backfill from like a lower level customer service position. So we looked at what is a customer service position paying, you know, that could take on the lower duties of this person who's now going to take over some of these responsibilities. So,
Yeah, of these 4 positions that are available, what departments do they impact?
one is parks, one is water operations, one is solid waste, and one is everything.
So evenly divided.
Right, because you see, the retirement tsunami's happening in public employment, and those that don't have a good succession plan are feeling the pain.
Right.
And they're actually even having to bring back employees that, after they've been retired for 6 months and work them 1,000 hours a year, to help train some of the new staff that they weren't really prepared to do,
Right.
you know, from operations all the way through management, so.
Yeah, with what we've done with the succession planning over the past few years, we knew that there were going to be retirements, and we knew the people that we thought could fill the positions, and made sure that they were properly trained. And I'm going to give David kudos. David prepared the budget basically completely by himself this year, which is something that 3 years ago he could not have done. So I feel that we've adequately prepared the right people for the right positions, to where we're not going to have any downtime with this. It's
Also the audit.
yeah, with the audit. So for us, this is a step forward moving into the future.
End of discussion?
Did you want to see the information?
I would like to see background,
I mean, if
more
you-
background information.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. If she gives you the salary of the 4 people, let's say, that are considering taking this option, we have no way of knowing which ones are going to take it once she shows it to us. So even though we know those numbers, it's not necessarily going to be exact.
Correct.
So,
It's not going to be the numbers in this chart, because all 4 are
Right.
not going to
but even if
take
they
the bait,
know
but-
the 4 salaries of the 4 people that are possibly interested, it's not going to matter, because we're not going to be able to input, okay, well, this one's going to do it and this one's going to do it, so then you're going to know what the numbers are. We won't know until after they accept.
No,
Yeah,
but
that's
they
why we-
used numbers to get to the 837, so
Right.
it'd be nice to see all of that, to see where we're at.
Yeah, and that's why we did put in there, we're gonna do a status report to board. So maybe what we could do, is extend the employee enrollment window to encompass that board meeting. Because there's just a lot of conversations that have to be had, and a lot of homework on the employees that are considering this.
Yeah, we want to give them time to do as Steve suggested, talk to their legal counselor, their tax preparer, so they can actually see how it's going to affect them once it's offered. Right now, at this point, it has not been offered for them to even have the idea of
Right.
what it's going to look like.
They can look in the board package. and
Yeah,
get a
they can
great
look at the board package.
Well, and I,
Preparing right now.
I'll point out that, you know, our very diligent CFO, Ms. Lawrence, she did all of these numbers, and so we're very confident in them. She was very conservative on her estimates. There's a possibility we could save more depending on how it all washes out. But
So if we have you bring back the additional information that they want to the first meeting in January, then you're confident that you'll still have enough of a window for them?
yeah, if we just
Okay.
extend the enrollment window to, 2/15, but we bring this back to the board in January, I feel like that meets the timeline.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, good with that.
Awesome, all right. All right, so moving on to item 6F, discussion and possible action regarding purchase and installation of pressure reducing station for Piñon Hills Road and Sacramento Road.
Thank you. I'll take the first part of this, and I'll let Sean give you some of the background information that I may or may not cover in this first part. And we have over 7,000 feet of 16-inch PVC pipe in the ground. This is mainly coming away from well 14 over on the county line. And over the past, couple of years, we've had this line split 4 different times. This total failure of a joint of pipe. And this is a pretty high pressure pipe. Sean, we're at 165 pounds.
Yeah, averaging 165 on class 150.
Yeah. So out of the 4 times we've had this leak, typically they're in the middle of the night. We have property damage that occurs from this. It can wipe out the road, can wipe out personal property of people, and we have insurance to deal with or a lot of staff time. So far, it's averaged about $9,000 per repair to take care of this line. Staff came up with an idea for reducing pressure in that pipeline by installing a pressure reducing valve at the upper end of this piece of pipe. Therefore reducing the pressure in the pipe down to probably whatever they feel is appropriate, probably 50 or 60 pounds for the normal operation of this pipe. Again, this is one that's fed by well 14. So well 14 is very rarely used now. And so what would happen is with that pressure reducing valve, well 14 could still kick on. It's going to raise the pressure in the pipeline, but it wouldn't be for an extended period of time. So for probably 99% of the time, you're going to have a very reasonable pressure in that pipeline, and it would only be when well 14 is utilized into the system, which is, I think we kicked it on. Almost never. It pumps to waste right now. We used it a few times this last year, but with the new well going online, that's going to make a big difference, and we may, I don't say never have to use it again, but it would be very rare that we would use it additionally. So the amount to do this is about $58,000. It includes a vault, some flanges, piping elbows, pressure reducing valves, and it can be installed by staff. And so what we're asking is for the board to approve the purchase and installation of a 2-way pressure reducing station at Piñon Hills Road in Sacramento. Sean, the construction time would take within about a month. We would have this in place.
Yes. And as Don mentioned, we've had 5 major leaks on that pipeline in the past several years. This hybrid PRV, and again, as Mr. Bartz mentioned, will allow flow to enter the distribution system from the well. And when the well is not in operation, it acts as a pressure reducing station, allowing flow from the system to backfeed that line and allows us to control the pressure.
Yeah, if we were to, this line is going to keep failing if we run it at the pressures where it is right. That's at the very end of the pressure you should be operating. We think there's a manufacturer's defect in this pipe. It's been installed years and years ago. And our only other option, well, we have 2 options. We can continue to repair this as it leaks, or we could replace that line. So I guess the third option would be to put in the PRV. But replacing 7,000 feet of 16-inch line would be very expensive to do. And we would like to take a cheaper repair approach to this and save the district some money. And we'll know if it works great. I'm a little bit concerned about when that well kicks on, if the pipe's going to swell, changing the pressures or not. But I think, and with Sean and Chris being involved with this, and George, feeling very confident that this is probably the best way to solve the issue.
Well 14 was only put in operation for 8 days this past summer, and well 15, as Don mentioned, is coming online. Our electrical components are being installed next week. which means we should be able to bump the motor next week. We passed our sanitary survey. We expect to have that permit in our hand next month. So that well should be in operation late next month or early February. Again, adding more redundancy and making use of 14 that much more unlikely unless there's an emergency. So it will still be there if needed, but this is a cheap alternative versus replacing 7,400 foot of 16-inch. We just installed 5,800 feet of 12-inch, and just to purchase the pipe at that time was almost $450,000. So kind of perspective, we're looking at probably close to $750,000 a pipe here.
Yeah, so we did not budget for this. This came to our attention after the budget was prepared, kind of like our closed session items sometimes. And this is what reserves are used for, this type of a project. If we can work it into our existing budget this year, we certainly will. But we did not anticipate the $60,000 hit in the budget. But I would recommend that we do install this PRV.
Two comments. First, it's probably JM Eagle pipe. So that might be something for Steve to look into to be part of the class action lawsuit for that product, if that's what it was when it was put in. And secondly, on the controls for the PRV station, my operations hat will come on. Did you guys also look at anti-surge anticipation on top of high pressure relief and pressure sustaining?
We did not go with the surge anticipator, just sustaining relief.
Okay, so that's all I had. Thank you.
Chuck, anything? Mark?
If the well is, if 14 is not on, what's the pressure in the line?
165.
Still with, so it's there's another issue, not well 14 is not the issue then.
It's a culmination. When well 14, it'll surge. We control the pump to waste and the pump control valves as slow as possible. You do see a surge. We've seen it spike up to about 180. I can't slow the pump controls down anymore or they don't work. It's the distribution pressure and the topography. We're gaining pressure. It's downhill.
That was my question, because if well 14 is not used, it still has 165 pounds on it.
Correct.
So the issue is, I mean, 14 is part of the issue, but it's not the main issue since it's not used.
Compounding
You
the
you
issue.
could simply put a valve on 14 and just valve it back. But if it's already got 165 in it, that has to be reduced.
Yeah, this will reduce the pressure in that whole bottom end of the pipe.
Yes. So putting a valve only at well 14 doesn't eliminate the 7,400 foot of 16-inch that's currently at the pressure. That's really what we're
That's-
seeking to reduce.
That's what, because this suggested that 14 was the problem, but it's not. It's that there's 165 pounds on that line.
It compounds it.
That compounds it, yes, okay. But that's different, that's, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Deborah? No? And you requested 4 bids, but you only got 2 back?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, 165 is a little too much.
That's a high pressure anyhow,
Well,
even.
technically, it's class 150, it's rated in twice its operating, but if it comes from that era of that bad PVC pipe that Jane Eagle and some other manufacturers constructed, you're gonna have problems with the pipe.
Was
Yeah.
it county pipe that was put in?
That's
So
correct.
you don't even know.
We know.
Oh, you do
I'm
know.
not naming names of manufacturers, but it is.
Okay.
So have Mr. Kennedy dust off his attorney's hat for that?
Yeah.
That stuff will
Yeah,
explode.
and it's not just a little failure, it's a catastrophic failure.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
that's
a 20-foot joint of pipe exploding.
splits.
Wow.
Yep.
All right.
Just don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, well, all right, so if there's no more questions or comments, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I will second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I assume that's a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Aye.
Now you just ruined my flow.
Oh,
Any
no.
opposed?
Oh, no.
All right, the motion passes, thank you. We got him to be more specific. All right. Item 6G, discussion and possible action regarding amendments of section 3.4.3, compensatory time off, comp time of the district's personnel manual. Mr. Barnes.
We're getting into Ms. Sevy's wheelhouse with this one.
Thank you. So I've been working with a consulting firm on overhauling our manual, and while they stick to the statutory items, I'm working on the district-specific items, and this happens to be one of them. So as a public agency, we do allow comp time for our employees who work overtime. They can designate it for time off later. Having worked with this policy for, 8 years or something now, just a couple things have come up that we would like to clean up as part of our policy overhaul. We would like to change the way comp time is designated. We don't have old-fashioned timesheets anymore. Everything's electronic, and so the practice has been you just send our accountant an email that, hey, this OT I worked this weekend, I would like comped, and we comp it. And then we do want to cap it at 40 hours of accrual per year, not accrue 40, use 20, and then you can accrue another 20, so you end up accruing, up to, who knows, 120 or so a year. Didn't foresee that happening when we initially did the policy, but it does happen on occasion. And then basically, most of the things stay the same. We do the payouts when they get a pay rate change, which typically is on their anniversary date. The only thing is in discussing this with our accounting staff, we don't want to do it with COLA because typically we don't carry a lot of comp time balances. And the time involved in doing that type of incremental adjustment for a small amount is not worth it because it takes a lot of time to break all of that out. But definitely with the major pay change, we do want to pay out that comp time so it's paid out at the rate that it was earned. And that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think you answered my question on the timesheet, so section B there in the last sentence. I was wondering why we were changing that and sending an email. Now I get it because we're going to electronic timesheets. And then I just wondered, why are we capping the comp time at 40 hours a year? Why do you want to do that? I mean, an employee works, I don't know, on call, and he's missing Christmas and holidays and kids' birthdays, and sometimes comp time is how he wants to take his time to spend
Right.
time with the family. I mean, I don't know why we would want to limit that.
So,
And
but
then-
back when the comp time policy was initiated, our staff was very young. So not young in age, but young in tenure with the district. And so everybody was at the lower end of the vacation schedule. So it was 2 weeks. And so it made sense to have an extra week available for comp. As everybody has accrued more vacation, they have 4 weeks, up to 4 weeks of vacation available to them. And so what we have been experiencing with a couple of our employees is they're missing a quarter of the year where they're not at work, which means somebody else is having to do that work and possibly they're getting overtime. So it perpetuates. And so operationally speaking, I went over this with all of our managers. And we believe that this is what's best for the operation of the district. And truly, we did not envision the perpetual accrual of comp time. We thought it'd be 40 per year, but then as we saw in the policy, it was interpreted differently. And so that's kind of what we've been dealing with. And for the most part, it's not an issue. And Sean has done an excellent job mitigating a lot of the field overtime. Obviously, emergencies happen, but the employee gets paid.
So we'd rather pay them than just give them the comp time and the time off.
No, we want to give them comp time, but with limits.
Well, yeah, we're going to end up paying
40
more
hours, 40
overtime.
hours of comp, but pay, and once you accrue that, they get the overtime.
Yeah, then we're going to
but-
be paying out more overtime, yes.
Yeah, but, we've
And
been working on minimizing overtime.
Because when you want the time off, I mean, Sean knows the schedule and approves the comp time when an employee asks for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like if an employee's out there at 2 in the morning doing on-call and he elects comp time and he wants to go accrue 40 hours, he should be able to do that to me. I mean, and then if we're worried about people missing most of the year, we have a vacation policy or piece in there that says you have to use 5 days of vacation consecutively every year, no matter what.
Yes,
I mean, why don't we get rid of that?
because we like our employees to be well rested and ensure that we have cross-trained staff that are able to take over for them in the event that they are not with the district.
Which is what comp time would do for them if they wanted to use it too.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? Greg? No? All right. Okay. So if no further discussion, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we make the changes to the employee handbook.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. All right, moving on to 6H, discussion and possible action regarding amendments to section 5.1, vacations of the district's personnel manual.
Ms. Sevi.
Ms. Sevi.
Alrighty, so as we kind of covered earlier, our staff is aging, but not in age, in tenure. And so what we have discovered in working with this policy is that for practical reasons, we would like to allow accumulation at a greater number. So rather than 160 hours, you could accumulate up to 200, which takes you up to the 20-year of service mark. And then after maximum accumulation, we would like to codify kind of what's been happening. If you have accrued your max, we are just paying out your accrual. So that way we don't have that much on the books. We don't want to have all that unfunded liability. And then scheduling, we just want to clean up some of this policy. Of course, we always want our employees to schedule their vacations as far in advance as possible. But we do want to give a number to that the bare minimum is at least a week before you go on vacation. Obviously, emergencies come up. You scored sweet tickets to a concert in Vegas and you want to take Friday off. It's up to, the general manager if he deems that to be an emergency usage. And, he would have the discretion to approve that without the employee being in violation of any policy. And then just to say that, getting a verbal okay is not okay. We want people to use our system so it's well documented that the requests were put in. And then accumulation, if you look at the section 5.1.1, our full-time employee definition is 40 hours per week. Back when the district form, it was 30 because we had some grandfathered in county employees. And that was for them. So that'll get cleaned up in other sections of the manual as well. The other one that we're having issues with is the selling of vacation time. Currently, it's at a maximum of 40 hours of vacation time can be sold. But sometimes, our engineering department gets super busy and he can't take all of his vacation time and it just builds up and builds up. And it would be easier if we're able to just pay out a bigger chunk rather than we can only pay out 40 and then we have to go through the accounting process of the max accrual issue and then doing the payout. So it's just a lot of time consuming accounting payroll side work that we're trying to eliminate here by increasing this. And then of course we are wanting to designate that you're taking 5 consecutive work days off because that is what we intended after speaking with some of our managers who've been here a long time. And then we want you to keep 40 hours on the books for that, of course, after payout. And we also want to put when you can use this. So before your anniversary date, again, we're trying to pay out at the same rate that it's accumulated. So rather than waiting for a pay increase and then saying, I would like to cash out my vacation at my new rate, we're requesting that you put this in before your anniversary date. So I'm done. Any questions?
All right, questions? No? Over here?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead.
5.1.2, 5.1.2. The term far in advance is rather obtuse. I think that needs to be identified. And then the chart for vacation days, that's what exists now because there's no red in that? So,
Yeah, the only
so
thing.
that's what exists now.
Yeah, and there is a red point up there. Our system doesn't allow 3 digits in in it, and so it rounds up to 0.08. So
That's the only change.
yeah,
And then you want to increase the accumulation to 200 hours instead of 160?
yeah. So you can accumulate an extra week.
I thought we were having an issue with people having too much time off as is, or taking,
No, the majority of our staff are well within
that's what you just said on the last.
guidelines. I said we had a couple of employees who are accumulating a lot of comp time, more than I think the policy ever intended. But for the most part, no. Like our office staff, it's like single digit comp time accrual, if any, because we don't really have OT there.
Yeah, it's mostly field.
Yeah, and of course exempt staff, we don't have comp time like that, and
Yeah, I would recommend changing far in advance to something more concrete. Actually, that's,
I think I left it nebulous because, like, if somebody's going to go out of the country for 3 weeks, I want to know, like, a year, if possible, just in case. But if they're just going to take a day off to go to Vegas,
well, is far in advance 2 hours or 3 days?
Well,
or
a
3
minimum of a
months?
week.
So, I mean.
At least a week.
It's
It's
a
at least a
perspective
week.
thing, right? So,
yeah, at least a week.
well, I think,
There are
yeah, it
tons of
should be
ex-
identified in here.
There are a lot of examples that you could find online through other agencies that talk about the time that's needed prior to taking or requesting time off, whether it be comp time or vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe some of that language that's in there. I've worked with some agencies where I managed union employees, and they get pretty specific on who, what, when, and how. But it's good language, and it helps the agency and it helps the employee. It's a double.
I will point out the original iteration of this policy did say as far in advance as possible. And for the most part, that's been working for us, other than we do want
Yeah,
a minimum
it
of a
can be
week.
corrected because
Yeah.
it just doesn't. Anyways, that's my comments.
And the reason I mention that is not that any employees are going to have that problem, but if it does become a problem and you need to address it, then you have specific language that helps you help the employee.
I agree, and so if you would prefer, we can bring this back maybe with some less nebulous timeframes built into the policy.
That'd be
There's
my
no rush on
suggestion.
this one.
So,
It can wait until January or later if necessary while we clean up the language. We do want it to be as best as possible when we incorporate it into the new manual.
Okay. So everybody's good with that? Yeah, all right, thank you. All right, so moving on to 6I, update on solid waste program implementation. Ms. Sevy.
Me again. So I did have my staff report in the packet under the manager's reports. I don't know if there's questions on that, or you can ask later. And that does have all of the details in it, but I did want to just show you what's going out in the CR on our bills. And the Solid Waste Committee got an opportunity to see this. So the bin customers got the trash service has changed, just to show kind of visually what that looks like, and what do I do if I don't want the new cards. It talks about that, 'cause it's the number one question. And of course, always on the back of these, we include the what goes where. Then we have our barrel customers, their quarterly bill, they're gonna have this insert, very similar to the other one. And then we're doing a separate postcard mailer to anybody who hasn't signed up for trash service or identified themselves as a self-hauler yet, just to let them know what's going on. Just trying to keep communication out there, and, just a reminder, CalRecycle grant does pay for these type of communications. And we did put in for another grant to help perpetuate as much communication as we can as possible. And Director Phillips had pointed out that the community is kind of self-policing on some of these topics now. So when somebody says something, they jump on board and explain what's actually happening.
It's
So
been
that's
really
nice to see that the communication is working.
I was very impressed on Facebook that when somebody commented about it, like 20 people commented about how this is what's going on, this is the timeline. It was a very big breath of fresh air to see.
I did get a receipt from the way station too.
Yeah, and we have some good news on that. We're not going to need receipts now because of the reporting that the county was able to do, which I knew that they could do. And
Oh, so we don't need to keep the receipts?
you
that
do
they
not,
give
and
us.
so those communications
I get 'em.
will be
Now that
going
you got
out.
one.
Those communications will be going out, and so I do believe we updated our mailer to talk about that. It said, what if I'm a self-hauler? It says residents can self-haul using their dump cart at no additional charge, no permit is required, and keeping receipts is no longer necessary now that San Bernardino County is able to provide us with the reports we need. And once again, a big kudos to President, incoming President Hayes on making that happen, because he's a big part of getting that done. And I greatly appreciate it.
How we doing on our Cal Recycle compliance order?
We are doing excellent on it, so we should be done with it by the end of first quarter 2024.
That's awesome. I'm gonna give you kudos for that because it's a very tough thing to get through.
And I will be very happy not to have to meet with them all the time.
Very nice. And it, so it says what we wanted, this is what we wanted to hear. Now, when we show up, starting January 1st at the dump, are they taking it sort of separated?
I would say no, because the county is still dealing with the state permitting process. At least the last time I checked in, maybe they fixed it since
Yeah.
then. And their contract with Athens. And so just do whatever the county says. They have still asked us to communicate that you should be source separating before you go, because who knows what will
Right.
happen. And they do currently have some separate drop-off piles.
Yeah,
But
they have metal, they have cardboard, they have electronics, and, you know, that, almost everything. And she asked me if I had green waste, and I said, yes, I have one can of it. But she just said, just dump
Yeah,
it.
I self-haul too, and I've seen there's additional employees now that are guiding you to where to dump. They're inspecting your waste more than they did before. So
Right.
I can see the preparations in place
Good.
of all the different things that they're starting to do in preparation for January.
yeah, and I do want to, for any constituents watching this meeting, the county operates the transfer station. We don't operate it. And so we can't compel them to give out our information or to even go the extra mile when somebody asks, like, hey, what do I have to do? They're going to say probably what the county wants, and that's what I've been told. Hey, make sure you keep your receipts, and you have to turn in 12 with your permit annually that you pay for with the county. And they're going to hear that information, but that's not what we're doing. So we're hoping that we'll keep up this communication to our self-haulers, especially now that I know who they all are. Like, hey, we don't need your receipts. There's no charge, and you just have to comply with what the county wants you to do at the transfer station.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 6J, update on the proposed Civic Center and Phelan Park expansion.
George.
Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess you heard from Kimberly, or Kim, sorry, that the NEPA is going to be required for the appropriation. So we found out with our meeting with Cal OES in late November. Looks to me like their review process with FEMA is in September when that is completed. We do have our engineer working on revising the CEQA to NEPA after our meeting with Cal OES in mid-January with the engineer or the consultant. That could be a couple months before that's completed. With this delay, that gives us the opportunity to revise the plans a little bit with the additional changes that were made after the plans were approved with the county, to resubmit and have that cleaned up, so when we go out to an RFP, there is no questions on what the additional changes might have been. There were some massaging of the plans after they were approved that we missed during the process. We do have Wallace Group. They're assisting us in preparing the RFP. We should have that completed. We're looking at the end of April, beginning of May. Bring to the board to get approval to put it out in the street and solicit bids. And we'll have some time for legal to review the packet. With that being said, I have nothing more to add. I mean, there was WQMP, but now that we have some time, we're kind of moving into refining the plans. Making sure all the dots and T's, or whatever you want to call it, are done. But if you have any questions on the Civic Park, I'll hit on the park here real soon, but on the Civic Center.
I think I've asked before, but did we do a constructability review on the plans for the Civic Center?
That was recommended with Wallace Group. There's some pros and cons to that. We're still in discussion whether we think we should move into that.
And in the architect's contract, do we have errors and omissions in there in case they mess something up? There's a clause in their contract for that.
All that is being compiled with all those documents with the civil engineer, the architectural, is bringing all those documents together. So right now, that's what we're compiling with Wallace Group. This is a big project for staff, and it was good to bring on a consultant that has experience in this type of project. So I could even say that the architect might not have had everything that was required. So we're kind of assisting the architect in preparing some of these documents.
Thank you.
If we do water, I mean, we'll slam that in, And we're not self-governed, so unfortunately.
You don't build projects all the time.
No, absolutely not.
And I did include a rendering of, this is the exciting one that will actually be built and done next year using the ARPA funds from the county. Just of the rendering of what the pickleball courts and community garden are going to look like. And so they're moving forward on the detailed design for that. Tom Regan was out surveying everything just to make sure we're ADA compliant, and if there's anything that's deficient, they're going to incorporate that into their design before there's an issue. And it's a little different than maybe the last time you saw this, just because we removed a tennis court so we could keep all of our beautiful trees in the picnic area. Otherwise, they were going to have to be removed. I think that's it.
Yeah, touch on the park a little bit. We did receive the letter that the withdrawal of the incidental take permit on the California Endangered Species Act. And we're moving forward with the Western Joshua Tree Conservation Act. The engineer is working on modifying the study, so when we submit to the state, the only modifications to it is just adding trunk size and the height of the Joshua trees that are on the property. And this is for the 14-acre project. The CEQA was noticed and completed back in August. I haven't heard much on the status of that. That's on the hands with the county. Leybourne has prepared that CEQA, so we're still in limbo with that. And Wallace Group and TRLS are currently working on the park design. So that's all I got on the park.
Thank you.
What is adult fitness?
Adult
Good
fitness?
question.
What are the designated areas, adult fitness?
yes.
What does that
So
mean?
as part of the grant requirements for ARPA, we need to include elements that are for outdoor equity. So we wanted to make sure we included some things for seniors, and we wanted to, this whole thing has to benefit the health and wellness of the community, because those grant funds are pretty specific of what you can use them for. And so this type of activity and including a senior kind of fitness track around the park, you know, like, have you ever seen those exercise stations? Yeah, that's basically what that is.
Okay.
So you stop, drop, you know.
Do a push-up, do a
Board member-
pull-up.
The board member parking is now going to be on the far side of the lot.
Yeah, they force us to walk to our meetings.
So it's senior fitness area is more
Yeah.
apropos.
Yeah, mainly seniors. I mean, we want to make sure that the equipment we install encompasses a wide range of ages and abilities. So it's going to
Good.
be adaptable to whatever you can do.
Excellent. Thank
So sort
you.
of like
Thank
a
you.
circuit track has.
Yeah. All right. Item number 7, committee reports, starting with engineering.
There is we met on the 6th, and it's in the packet. If there's any questions, be happy to answer.
No? All right. Finance committee?
Finance committee meets, it was changed January 23rd.
23rd.
Okay, and assuming, I mean, there may be changes, but at this point, that's the next committee meeting.
Okay. Legislative?
We met yesterday. My mic on. We met yesterday, and we had one of the representatives from Obernofi's office speak. The rest didn't attend. Kim gave a review of the CSDA's end of the year legislation report. It's included in the report, and that's all I have.
Okay.
Deborah, do you have anything you want to add?
That was it.
Okay.
Great. All right. And Park and Rec, we met the end of November. And I would just like to thank staff for your incredible work on our Christmas tree lighting. I think we got rid of all of the hot cocoa this time, which means we had a great number of people. The Serrano Choir did a great job, Santa Claus, the fire department, the whole thing. So Director Snyder was there. Thank you very much.
And you were a good MC for the program.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
Edison had a PSP thing at the very beginning with the Christmas tree lighting and the tree didn't light, but, yeah.
We have generators for that.
I have never seen Dennis run
Run
that fast.
so fast.
Nor jump that far to
Yes.
get the tree lit.
Poor guy.
It was a good event. Everybody was happy.
It was very, very nice. So thank you very much. And waste and recycling.
We met last week and we went over it already in the board packet of what we went over in the meeting. And the minutes are in the packet.
All right, thank you very much. Item 8, staff and general managers report. Anything to add?
Nothing to add.
All right.
Yeah, I'll just add.
Yeah.
The Sheep Creek Wash Bridge will be open tomorrow around noon. They're going to do a last-minute sealant on the cracks out there. They're going to let that cure a little bit before they open up the bridge. There's no ribbon cutting. County will be out there. They're going to fly a drone, say let the cars go through. So it'll be open tomorrow afternoon.
That was actually a very quick process when they
It
turned the
was.
contractor loose to do what he needs to do.
Wow.
That was,
Yeah, yeah, because I was like, end of December, okay. I believe it when I see it. That's incredible.
I mean,
Amazing what can happen when red tape's removed.
I probably, I mean, Sean's commented it several times, and I can say the contractor on this project was amazing. Knew what they were doing. There was no question that they selected the right contractor for this project. They worked well with staff. Any issues that we had was mitigated immediately, so
That's
it was
excellent.
a really quick,
Thank
easy
you.
process.
I'm so happy. Sean, did you want to comment on your pictures for the well 15?
Certainly. On page 127 and 126, well 15, as we mentioned earlier, getting very close. Our goal was to have it spinning at least by Christmas, and that certainly seems like that's going to happen. We anticipate late next week. Might not. We have final inspection on our electrical on Tuesday, I believe, Wednesday. Probably be a couple of weeks till we get our Edison meter itself, but we'll be able to run it off of our generators. So we're looking forward to next week.
Thank you very much. All right.
And the pipe is level. I'm sorry, I'm not a photographer on page 127, just in case anybody's wondering. We do own levels. I'm just not the best photographer.
So, yeah, it's either the pipe or the building. One of them is not, no, I'm just kidding.
It's me.
It's the angle.
It's the angle, yes. Same with the lighting. Sorry, I'm
Nice.
not a photographer.
That's all right.
Did a great job.
Perfect.
First new well.
All right, item number 9, director's reports. Director Schneider? All right. Director Hayes?
Nothing to report.
Mark?
I went to Aqua in November, and I did not have it ready for this board meeting. I will have it in the first meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. Director Phillips?
I attended Aqua as well and realized that I'm very thankful we don't have dams we're dealing with or having to worry about fish ladders. Talking to other agencies and how many problems they're having that we don't have. Very grateful that for the problems we have and the ones we don't have. I also attended the TAC meeting last week. George was put in a position there for the executive committee. And going over the numbers for the water that came in from that storm and the damage is very impressive. Our former director Hoffman, now director over at Mojave Water, put in some really impressive photos. So,
All right, thank you very
and,
much.
Well, they'll have another meeting in February.
Okay, thank you. And for myself, I didn't have anything to report, but I would just like to say thank you for allowing me to be your president for 2 years. And look forward to handing off the reins next meeting. Appreciate it very much. And we will move on to 10.
No pressure.
No pressure, Chuck. Yeah, none at all.
Big shoes to fill. Don't expect much from me.
Just put me right next to him so I can kick him under the table if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. All right, item 10, correspondence and information.
So, just the items in the packet, we included some thank you cards that we received from the Phelan Court, so our princesses and queens and whatever their official titles are. They were at the tree lighting ceremony. And then Senator Rosalisi Ochoa-Bogue attended a town hall last week and presented us with a certificate, so that's in the office now. And of course, winter conservation tips and our trash flyers, just for good measure, in case you didn't see them. And then we have the LEWAP program, but that's out of funding now, correct?
I think it's possibly being continued.
Okay, so it's in here. It's to be determined if the funding is going to continue or not. So if you know anybody who could benefit from that, they should still contact us, and we'll keep them posted on if there's still funds available.
Okay. All right, so moving on to 11, review of action items. Were there any prior meeting action items?
1 second. Yes, the posted presentations to the website, and I believe that is complete.
Okay, and current meeting action items?
None other than I'm bringing back some items that were on this agenda with additional information.
Okay. And then item 12, agenda for next meeting. Are we proposing to skip December's second meeting?
That would be our recommendation.
Are we all in agreement with that? Excellent. So then our next meeting would be January,
Be in January, and it would be, where are my notes? Anybody with a calendar?
anybody?
10th, 11th,
I'm so sorry, I don't
all
have my
right.
note.
8, 9, I think it's the 10th, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the 9th or 10th. It'll be the second Wednesday in January.
There you go. That's how we do that. All right. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that agenda? No? All right. All right. So we will now recess to close session at 6:33 p.m. Thank you.